Welcome to Meet the Candidates here on WCMU. I'm David Nicholas, and our guest is Amos O'Neal. He is the Democratic candidate for Michigan's newly drawn 94th district. The representative is seeking a second term for this district, formerly the 95th, and it is still centered in the city of Saginaw proper with surrounding townships therein. And Representative, thank you very much for taking the time with us.
Thank you, David. Thank you for the opportunity.
In our first couple of moments here, a little bit then about you, your hometown, your background, and also then your experience that you're bringing to this campaign.
Yes, thank you. Yes, Saginaw, it's my hometown, born and raised here in the city of Saginaw, from a family of 5 boys, 2 girls. My brothers and I were very involved in sports early in the Saginaw area. And I spent a lot of time in education, nonprofits, before being elected in 2003 as a city councilman. I served as a city councilman for 16 years. And after that, I was elected to the Saginaw County Board of Commissioners for 4 years. So before becoming a state legislator, I had 17 years of city and county experience under my belt. So I'm very pleased to have had that opportunity to serve at those capacities, which really has created an opportunity for me to be a pretty effective state legislator in my first term.
And the familiarity with the district, as we saw these lines being redrawn, 94 does not differ a tremendous amount from 95. So as you've approached these voters again, seeking the second term, what are they telling you are the 1 or 2 top issues that they identify in this campaign?
Well, as I'm going around, and I was really just excited to hear some of the comments. You know, I just introducing myself. Actually, I did a mass mailing to the entire district, just introducing myself to the public. And when I went out, I just shared some of the top ticket items that I was working on, education being one, and skilled trades and opportunities for a path forward for students being second. And I was really not too surprised, but surprised that folks are really tuned into those 2 items. And they were saying, you know, this is really good for us to have those opportunities for kids to career pathways to skilled trades. Everyone's not going to a 4-year university. We know that now. And so with Michigan being an automotive capital state, the high skilled workers, and a lot of those individuals are due to retire in the next 10 to 15 years. So there was a big concern about the pipeline in those industries to make sure we stay competitive and keep our competitive edge in the state as well as the country.
Is the state in a position now where that training is available to students across the school districts? And also then, do we see the potential for the jobs economically? And what would you do should you be elected to address those concerns to make sure that potentially as many students as possible have that opportunity and then have the jobs to go to?
Yes, great. Yes, there are tremendous opportunities in the skilled trades. That's one of my really top priorities. I'm on the Workforce Trade and Talent Committee, which many of the skilled trade opportunities come through. And for example, we have a great community skilled trades program here at SCC, Saginaw Community Complex, here in Saginaw that serves the Great Lakes Bay region. And so we have some of the state-of-the-art technology, equipment. We have a lot of support from these industry standards businesses around the region that came in to look at our facilities. And we're considered a prime location. We have 7 prime sites throughout the state of Michigan. And that's where you have industry businesses come in to let us know what the students need to come into these various businesses around the state. And so here just recently, I was really excited to have a $10 million earmark for our region for skilled trade teachers, because as you know, shortages in various capacities, and teaching was one major one. So had support from the governor on that, and that really, it's a great impact for us. Also, we're working on a line item in the school aid for rural areas. You know, a lot of rural areas are not able to levy millages and things like that. So what do? I said to my colleagues, let's make an investment so students in rural areas will have opportunities to have those skilled trade amenities based on the industry standard in that district, in that region. For example, if there's a small machine shop in a rural town, we'll talk to that business owner and say, hey, Mr. Business Owner, what are some of the skills that you would need for an individual to come to your business to perform? And that's the way we'll set up the opportunities with the school in the area. And the equipment is what's really expensive. And so I asked my colleagues to support an increase in that line item that will afford those rural districts, particularly, to have opportunity, those kids to get an opportunity. So we should not penalize the kids for not having the ability. They don't go out for millages, the adults do. But for whatever reason, they don't. I feel very strongly we should not penalize those kids. We should give them an opportunity to have that exposure. And I said to my colleagues, they said, well, you're going to take from this community because they were able to do a millage. And I said, no, let's not look at it that way. There's a formula in the school aid budget for 61C. That's the line item. If we create a formula that will be equitable to those districts, in terms of their ability to provide students opportunity now. And I said, these kids are not going to be kids all the time, forever, right? They're going to be eventually taxpayers, homeowners, uh, buying, purchasing cars, and et cetera. So let's give them a chance. Okay, so we're really excited about that, and I've got a lot of bipartisan support to support that, and that's really what's important. To have the bipartisan support to get these things over the finish line.
With the work that's being done then on that line item and the $10 million supplement that the governor provided in this area, we couple that with the disruption created by COVID to all of our schools. How is the timing lining up then to get this fully implemented in place? And what would your goals be in terms of a timeline should you be elected to move this forward as quickly as possible for the students' benefits?
Yes, you're right, David. COVID has set back everything that we're doing. And right now, with the elections coming up, we've had a couple sessions on some other important items. One, I'll just throw in recently, this week, we had an appropriations meeting relative to Hemlock Semiconductor. We just had the president approve the CHIP Act. I'm sure you heard about that. And our region is poised for those jobs. And that's another caveat for us to create opportunities for students and young adults to get involved in that. And so our region, Michigan, is really poised. We've made major investments in EV technology opportunities for our big three. And so there are a lot of spin-off jobs associated with that, David. And so that's where the skilled trade opportunities come. I was at a panel discussion with Ben Frederick, my colleague, floor leader Frederick, and he and I were panelists, and we were talking about the things we were working on. He's working on an education package that has bipartisan support, where adults who are transitioning from the COVID have an opportunity to go back to college, right? In addition to the Reconnect and the Futures for Frontliners. And so I asked one of the business owners, I said, what are you looking for in students coming into your business? Engineering or high tech robotics? He said, high tech robotics. And I said, oh, so what's the difference between engineering and high tech robotics? He said, well, engineering has specific sets of standards and guidelines, but their robotics person, they have a broad experience because you have high tech machinery and equipment in these industries. You got to have kids that are able to manipulate and process a lot of data to operate those equipment. So that's increased efficiencies. And that was amazing. And so from that conversation, actually, I'm invited to come to his facility in Clare County. It's a plastics facility. And I'm scheduled to go there to see personally what's going on there. So those are the kind of things I do. I'm fortunate enough to be elected. But again, I'm going to continue with what I started. In my first year, we brought over $3 million back into the district. One just recently, notwithstanding the 10 million, but last year we got a $500,000 for a skilled trades program here in Saginaw County Youth Development Corporation. That's a program that deals with students who maybe have some bumps in the road in terms of the traditional pathway. This program is vibrant and strong. And another area youth participate in terms of law enforcement. Bridge the Gap. That's another great program, and it's a program that's started by law enforcement. And what they do is support students and engage students in the exposure of law enforcement, and they recruit and send students to the academy. And so that's a big deal. Just got $1 million in my supplemental request that I requested for that organization. We did a press conference here at the sheriff's office, and you had all of the sheriffs and top commanders from Saginaw, Bay, and Midland County to receive that $1 million, you know, press conference check. So those are the kind of things I've worked and I've got done. And just in addition, Senator Ken Horn, he's my friend, and he and I worked together in a bipartisan way to save the judgeship, a 10th district judgeship here in Saginaw County that was due to be eliminated. And as a result of that, we had 5 candidates running for the judgeship. And so, you know, really, it's very important that you have someone that has experience, first of all, someone that has, you know, the ability to forge and maintain positive key relationships, whether you're an R or a D. You know, I have that. I have the respect of my colleagues on the other side, and I think that's very, very important in this time, post-pandemic. Hopefully, you know that we can keep things moving in a positive way. Very connected with our Saginaw County Chamber of Commerce. You know, we're working with some Canadian representatives to do some work to dredge the Saginaw River to expand our ability to import and export up the Saginaw River. You know, those are key relationships that we've started, and this also goes into with exchange students going from Canada from Saginaw County area, Great Lakes Bay region, to Canadian for those high-tech jobs as well. So there's a partnership that we're working on.
And if we look at the accomplishments that you feel you've made and the goals that you have in our last just a couple of seconds here, to sum that all up in one message that you'd want to leave with the voters as they get set to go to the polls, what would that message be?
Well, as I said, my experience, you'll have strong experience leadership going back to Lansing. And I think in a post pandemic where, you know, it really takes a couple years for anyone to get used to that landscape. You know, if you don't have any experience, you know, like city government, I have, county government, I have, the next level is state government. So those two things prior to going to Lansing really has equipped me to be an effective, experienced, successful legislator. And I think that's what voters want. That's what voters want us to do in terms of the ability to get things done. I bring that to the table. And I would ask for your support to continue the work we've done for our region.
Well, we certainly do appreciate your time you spent with us today, and we wish you best of luck with the rest of the campaign. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
We've been speaking with Amos O'Neal, the Democratic candidate for Michigan's 94th House District. I'm David Nicholas. Make sure to cast your vote on Tuesday, November 8th. All qualifying candidates were invited to participate in this series. Following the redraw of Michigan House, Michigan Senate, and congressional districts, check with local officials to make sure you are properly registered. Election Day is Tuesday, November 8th.